Good morning, guys. Sean from the Movement Guide. Amazing day today, so I thought I'd do this out in the sun. I've had a cup of coffee, so I'm going to be a bit sharper with you today. I've got a couple of questions. First of all, someone said last time my audio was too low. Turn your speakers up. Doing this for free. Trying my best, and I'm fucking technologically retarded. So, John Gorjani, I think I'm saying that correctly. He would like to know A, how to program sessions, B, some recovery tips to stay fresh in between sessions, and C, whatever the fuck I want to teach him. So, John, I've seen people, like coaches, ask this before, and they get a bit arrogant and say that it's a stupid question. That's not a stupid question, man. That's a really good question and something that people don't actually think about. Unfortunately, it's a really fucking broad and deep topic. It's huge. You know, to tell you how to program a session. I need that so bad. To tell you how to program a session, first you probably need. I need to know a few elements. Right, below here, I've got a big whiteboard. I would write this up in front of you, but the perspective is off, and I'd have to bring it in and out and in and out, and I'm a terrible writer. And I don't have a stand. So I'm just going to write things as I go down here. Then at the end, I'm going to show you what I've written. All right. So we'll come up with our own hypothetical situations. So let's assume, okay, strength, mobility, and skill. 3 things. All right. That's pretty much what most people want anyway. To some degree, anyone who does this sort of stuff or other sort of things. So, for example, if you're a strongman, okay, your skill could be the technique that you use for a axle cleaner press, or a Atlas stone lift. If you're a bodybuilder, your skill could be posing. If you're an acrobat, obviously it's tumbling. If you do movement culture shit, it might be hand balancing or soft acrobatics. If you're a field and track athlete, your skill could be literally ball skills, hand-eye coordination. High jump would be, working on your shape over the bar. These are examples of skill, okay? So we'll have that as skill, and for this purposes, I'm going to talk about, in terms of bodyweight stuff, things I know a bit more about, and we'll talk about, okay, the handstands, yeah? So, handstand. Second, we have strength. You guys are going to laugh when you see my handwriting, man. All right, so let's try and be specific here. We'll talk about something that a lot of people want to do and more interested in, upper body pulling, I suppose, because a lot of guys want pushing, so like chest work. A lot of chicks want to know more about pulling because they want to get pull-ups, and to be honest, a lot of guys need to get stronger at their pulling, so we'll talk about pulling. Let's go a pull-up. And then finally, we're going to have mobility work. Flexibility is another term you could use for this. Accessory work come kind of like along the strength work, so any rotator, rehabilitative sort of stuff, or prehabilitative, which is kind of like preparing to avoid rehabilitative needs. But we're going to talk about mobility. So let's say, you want to get your shoulders more flexible, okay? A lot of people have tight shoulders, and we'll call that mobility. Okay, so we have 3 parts so far to this program. We have skill, strength, and mobility. We want to work pull-ups, which is all about scapular retraction and depression. Pull in to the bar, overhand, underhand, supinated, pronate, doesn't matter. Still the same principle. Next you have, it's getting hot. Next you have your handstand, which is skill, pure skill. Initially it might feel like it's a fatiguing movement and it's a strength movement, but as you get further along in it, you'll realize there's not so much strength in a handstand, well, 2-arm handstand anyway, and it's more about understanding and body awareness and body continuous in how you handle tension, how you handle redistribution of your weight. So in those terms, it is a skill. It is nervous system dependent, and it is one of those few skills that is very much dependent on how much recovery you've had. I'm sorry, the puppy has Esco. Puppies, we got 2 puppies. One's 18 months old, and the other one's 8 weeks old. And yeah, week old one just got the bottle of sunscreen. So, all right. So back to my focus. Handstands, nervous system. It's not heavily loaded for this, but you need a lot of time up there to redevelop or relearn a whole new way of proprioception. Okay, your vestibular way of balancing yourself is going to be fucked here. It's just gone when you go to learn handstand. Your visual, that's gone as well. Okay, you can't rely on that because everything's upside down. In fact, some of the drills you work on, you have eyes closed. Head in, neutral, head up. It changes everything again. Proprioception is kind of your main focus when it comes to learning handstand. And proprioception is kind of joint loading. All right, so how your body reads pressure in the joints themselves, and that tells you where you are. So you can close your eyes and you can kind of rock around on your feet, and you'll feel pressure shift in the ankle, the toes, the knee, loading up through the hip and pulling in the opposite spine. And this tells you instinctively from experience of doing this many, many times throughout your life that you're leaning to the right. So you need to correct this. Being on your hands enough gives you this understanding. Okay, so it's going to develop your proprioception, which is your joint loading. So now you've understood that it's a skill that is about adaptation and relearning a movement. It's not so much about strength. We'll say that, let's say this is very low intensity for both the nervous system and the musculature system. So we'll say less than, I don't know, let's give this number, 60% of CNS and muscular system loading. Okay. Next we have our strength, which is our pull-up. So a handstand requires some elevation and protraction. So we're going to be in this kind of shape here. Not back, but pushed and up. It gives us that shape there, okay, which is going to be great for our line and our control. Now we're going to go completely the opposite, which is to retract and depress through the scapula. So if you notice, I pull down and back. Okay, this locks my scapula in. Proper retraction depression, as a side note, is going to be optimal for you guys, as the bicep and tricep both do connect to the scapula, and proper retraction depression helps to create adequate tension through the bicep, which is going to help, again, make your pull more powerful. Okay, so now we're going to work completely opposite movement in the scapula, or the shoulder blade, as some people know it. So we're going to have to prep that. And also, depending on your ability with this, it depends how heavy this will be on your body. So for this example, let's say you can do 1 chin-up, okay? Which would make that, and that's it. You're struggling to get over that bar and full range to sternum and control back down from full hang, okay? That's your 1 RM. Now, I would say that is around 95 and above % of your 1 rep max. Basically, it means that that's all you got in the tank. Even on a great day, you will struggle to even engage for the 2nd rep. So let's say you've got 1 chin, 1 rep, and 95% 1 RM. Okay, this means this is massively demanding on your nervous system. So it's going to take the most fatigue onto the body, and it's going to take the most demanding pressure on the body, and it's going to require most of your body's ability to adapt and recover for you to progress and get better at it. Finally, we're going to have the shoulders and mobility, which is very low intensity. So I'd say less than 30% for the things we do in the shoulder. Less than 30% on the CNS and the musculature system in terms of demand. This is really hard to explain all this. I'm sorry if this doesn't make any sense. Okay, so there are many types of stretches that you can do. So you could do loaded stretches, you could do isometric stretches. So loaded stretches for the shoulder, for example, would be going into in and out of a skin the cat into a German hang, for example. Yeah. An isometric stretch for your shoulders could be the bottom of the German hang, or if you want it to be less intense, it could be a seated shoulder extension, holding your weight back a bit. A passive stretch could literally just be pulls across and stretch the different, you're trying to stretch the different ranges of the joint, and that's about it. There's no particularly heavy load to this. You can hold this for minutes on end. Isometric, you'd probably hold it for up to 30-40 seconds before you're really gassing, and you would only be able to do this a couple of times a week because it does create a lot of demand on the tissue and the nervous system. It is basically strength training. Loaded stretching, I use the term isometric and loaded a bit differently because I kind of, in my mind, envision loaded stretching, while it can still be an isometric, I use it more as a repetition followed by an isometric to get the best of both worlds. So, in other words, you might go in and out of a German hang for 10 reps, and the last rep you'll hold for 10 seconds, okay? Whereas an isometric, I would purely focus that as just an isometric hold, which means you would just go straight into your 10-second hold, and that's it. Okay, so for this workout, we're going to choose the passive stretching at the very end to ease off the shoulder capsule. And we're going to use some loaded stretching at the beginning to prep the shoulder capsule. But we're going to use a less intense variation. So we'll use loaded at less than 50% effort, perceived effort. So basically, when I say perceived effort, I mean what you think is hard. Then we will use first, and then second, we will use passive at, I'd say it's probably less than 30% perceived effort. You could use some loaded or isometric holds at the end of this, but to be honest, for a lot of people, for a long time, this is quite a lot of work, especially on the shoulder capsule. So you don't want to overdo it, otherwise you do risk injury. And this is, mind you, just one workout. It's just one element, okay? So I'll write this up. Actually, let's see if I can show you this. Just going to hold this for a second. Okay. Can you see that? I think you can. Not too bright. Put it over here. No, we'll stay here. All right. Getting quality at this website, man. I'll tell you that much. Skill, handstand strength, pull-up, shoulders, mobility. All right. Less than 60% of your CNS and muscular loading. It's in my mind perceived effort. Strength, we're assuming you can do one rep, which is basically 95% of your 1 RM. In other words, you could probably start to initiate another rep, but that'd pretty much be it. Or if I gave you 5 to 10 seconds rest, you might be able to get one more rep, okay? Shoulder mobility, we're going to use, I want to use less than 30% of your CNS and muscular loading. So it means we're going to use a loaded stretch that's less than 50% of your perceived effort to begin the session. At the end of the session, I want to use a passive stretch, less than 30% of your perceived effort to complete that session, okay? What I mean by this is basically I want to give your body a bit of control and activation through the beginning stages of the session to prep everything, to get the nervous system ready to handle those, to get the scapula moving through complexity, and get the shoulder capsule through a range of motion. At the end of the session, I want to pick stretches or a stretch that specifically targets time restricted areas based on what you did, okay? So let's make up a sample workout here for you, okay? So let's assume you're going to start with your skill, which is my advice always, because you want to work your skill while your nervous system is fresh and you can make controlled reactions. So let's start with your skill. So this is a terrible idea, Sean. You should have thought this better. Okay, so I'm just gonna bring you down here with me. Yeah, let's see if that works. Push show you here. Does this work? Yeah, perfect. I can bring you close enough to see now. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you can see all this. All right. So what we're going to start with is let's call it EQ, equilibrium work. Okay. I'll show you all of this once it's done. So we're going to start with, let's say, A1. We're going to... All right, here's the puppy. Come on. Say hello. Love you. Walk on. All right, so we're going to start with your EQ. Let's say A1. Let's prep your wrists, okay? So wrist prep. 20 reps. Idea being here that I want to get blood flow into the joint capsule. I don't want to overly tax my wrist before I start getting into my session. This is just mainly for beginners, you know. Then I might go and I'll do one set. B1, I would probably work some shape work, you know, so shape work. Times 2 to 3 sets. Again, you don't want your shape work to be a fatiguing factor for you. You want to be able to maintain control and quality throughout your session here, okay? C1, finally, I would work my handstand drills. And you can do as much as you... More dogs. Okay, and for your handstand drills, I mean, you can play this by ear. You can do as much as you like here. Obviously, the more you do, the better you're going to get at it. It is a skill, as we said, so it needs frequency and volume. I recommend aim for 10 minutes on hands. If you're kind of like intermediate sort of level, if you're a beginner, about 5 minutes kind of thing should be a goal for a session, purely because, and mind you, that means on your hands, in control, really focusing on what you're doing, not just up on the wall chatting with someone. Be mindful in your practice, okay? The reason being is you're going to need enough time on your hands every session, frequently, in order to develop that proprioception, okay? A lot of people just don't do enough of it. Cool, we've done this, all right? Now let's go into strength. So I'm going to warm up A1, maybe A2. So I'm going to use loaded stretches. So I might use depending on your level, so I'm going to assume this person, if they can only do a couple of pull-ups, like 1 or maybe 2 chin-ups, then I'm going to assume they haven't really got the structural strength to do some higher level stuff. So what I'm going to do with them first is some maybe Jiaopeng press times 10 reps each arm. And then I might do some prone stick. Hey, buddy. That's Bo. Dislocates. Times 10 reps. And I might do 1 to 2 sets of this, okay? So these are both excellent movements. One a bilateral and then a unilateral exercises to develop the scapular control as it lifts and rotates and controls, compresses the shoulder capsule as it rotates through ranges of motion, and it gives you time to feel out the joints, find any sticky tissue, just basically to gauge where you are that day for that session, okay? 1 to 2 sets is adequate. You want to prep and feel everything working. You don't want to overly fatigue your scapula, especially before you start training, okay? Maybe finally here as well, if you really want to, as last bit of activation, you could do some scapular pulling. Scapular pull-ins, maybe I would say 3 to 5 reps, 1 to 1 work to rest, and then I would do like 3 sets. Okay, this should prep you up. You should be nice and warm here in the shoulders. And let's say, okay, you're gonna do your strength now. If you want your pull-ups, let's prioritize that. There's a lot of bent arm programming that gets given out there where you do a push and a pull, and this is great if you want to build sort of balance and you want to save time, because it lets you do a push with a shorter rest and a pull with shorter rest, and gives you the adequate rest between the same exercise again. But if you really want to give focus to something, just focus on that and take the proper rest for it. So we're going to say this is real strength for you. So first thing first, we're going to go 3 minutes rest minimum. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, okay, well, we want to build volume in something that is quite heavy for you. We have other options that we can go down and work less more regressed movements, but it's not going to be the same pattern. So if you can do one chin up, then I'm going to work with that. So let's go 2 cluster reps, okay? 2 cluster rep with a 10-second rest in between each rep. Okay, so that means you do 1 rep, control, step off the bar, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Back up for your second rep on 10 seconds. Don't go over that, just do that second rep, then rest. Then you get your 3 minutes rest, okay? This is one option you could do, and you might do, let's say, 6 to 8 sets of this. This is an option you could take as an example, and you can manipulate the exercise, the frequency, the volume, whatever. My best opinion on what you could do with this, if you want to develop this up, is you do, let's say, a 20 to 30 minute, as many sets as possible, handstand. So 2 cluster reps is 1 set. Rest as much as you need to feel recovered with quality, yeah? Okay? Wow, this is a long video, sorry guys. Okay, cool. Done that. D1, let's go. Okay, let's get some accessory work, yeah? So maybe some arm flexors and extensor work, plus rotator cuff. And I might do 3 to 5 sets of these. Okay, I'll let you research, let you learn something about that. Look at structural integrity. What's the missing link in your chin-up? Is it the initial engagement from the hang? Is it the closing at the top of the movement? Figure it out. Have a look. Observe yourself, film yourself, see where it's going with that, okay? Finally, we're going to come down to a bit more mobility. So we call this prehab. Or rehab if you've got an injury, okay? So I would say, let's say 2 exercises should be adequate for most people for this post-training. If you notice up here, this is your loaded sort of stretching. Loaded stretching, and this is going to be your passive. Okay, I would say feet elevated bridge, times 30 seconds, and maybe a passive hang times 30. Maybe 3 sets of this, yeah? Rest as needed. Now, some of you will say, oh yeah, but elevated bridge, that's loaded stretching, and it is a bit loaded. I personally think if you're working heavier elements like this, a feet elevated bridge, it's isometric in a way, except for the small controlled articulations you're constantly making while you're up there. It is loaded to a point, but that's only if your feet are too low. So basically, if you get your feet higher enough and you stack correctly, it's all about just time under tension with stacked joints stretching the right tissue. If your feet are low, your ego stretching, you're trying to rush the progression, then you're going to have to bend the elbows, planche, angle back at the shoulder line, and that's going to load up your traps. That's going to load up your rotator cuff, your triceps, and that will be more effort. So take your time, get stacked properly, and this is going to be a lot smoother and simpler for you, but you're also going to get the idea of a passive stretch out of it. The passive hang is just a way to kind of decompress the shoulder capsule as well, cause some tractioning to happen with the connective tissue, and get everything working again properly. All right, so let's review that. Oh my God. So here we go. EQ, then you have strength, then you have accessory work, rotator cuff, and then finally you have some passive stretching. Okay, so we got wrist prep, shape work, handstand drills. Get your nervous system, your controlled skill work out of the way. Move to your strength. warm up the shoulder capsule on the joint, go sub-maximal, build up the volume as you improve over time. Work your focused effort, either an AMSAP or focused work on sets and volume for your strength element. Stay less than 5 reps, in my opinion, for your strength work. Keep moving that up. If you increase maximal strength endurance will increase with that curve as well. Do your accessory work. Don't just look at the typical rotator cuff and trap 3 raises and things like that. It's something that people get afraid of doing direct arm training because they think it's not functional or movement or whatever the fuck. It's stupid. I mean, strong biceps, strong triceps, strong elbow extensors and flexors and all forms will improve your performance. They'll improve your shoulder stability. They'll improve your elbow stability. You'll get greater range of mobility at your shoulder and your wrists. You'll be able to handle heavier loads. You'll avoid tendon issues. You'll recover quicker. You'll be able to move significantly greater power by working on your weakest links. Do the fucking curls. All right, and then finish off with some passive stretching. Just chilled, relax, open up those lines that you've loaded up through. Some tips to recover, because I'm gonna wrap this 30-minute video up. Some tips for your recovery. I would say don't overkill the assisted recovery techniques like cold hot runs and Epsom salt baths and things like that. Don't overdo it. Your body will get kind of used to it. Once or twice a week you could do that after like particularly heavy days. I did it yesterday. I had a really hot Epsom bath and then cold rush in the shower a couple of times through, and I won't do that again for a while. You can look at magnesium directly post-training with some vitamin C and some salts in your diet. Increase your salt intake, especially if you're lower carb. You're going to need that higher salt level. I'd recommend either post-training carbs or carb cycling, like every 3 days, 4 days, have a big carb up day. You've got self-myofascial release, tissue work, work out the fascial lines, flossing tissues, flossing the nerves, trigger point work, get a deep tissue massage or do it yourself. It's cheaper, it's free. Meditation, passive meditation, seated, standing meditation, moving meditation, Tai Chi, shaking meditation, which I know a lot of people like to do as well. Turn off the lights in the evening, go candlelight. There's an app called Screensaver you can download for your Mac, and it blocks out a lot of the blue light, so if you're going to use it in the nighttime. Don't stare at screens and stuff an hour before you go to sleep. Unplug electronics in your bedroom. Have a dark, cool room to sleep in so you get optimal sleep and recovery. Maybe look at some zinc or get blood work if you want for that. BCAAs, Glutamin's an amazing supplement. I recommend anyone who's doing strength training to have that. Anyone with bowel issues or gut problems to have it. What else? Get out into nature more. At least once or twice a week, go to a park. I mean, we kind of like live out here, so that's our modest little shack, but we fucking love it. We could definitely have moved into an apartment or a nice big upscale place, but to be honest, it's just something about the simplicity of it that was fantastic. The fact there's no Wi-Fi out there, we have to come into the main house to use the Wi-Fi. You hear the birds, you hear the winds, you just have grass and trees everywhere. It's incredibly relaxing, incredibly rejuvenative. Recover hard, eat well. If it has more than, if it comes in a packet, get rid of it. Just buy real food. If you want to have some shit every now and then, do that, but don't make it a habit. Like once a week or something, have some shit, but expect to suffer for it a bit. Eat more vegetables. Not enough people eat a variety of vegetables, sulfurs, colors, greens. Every meal, have lots of that. Increase your antioxidants. You'll definitely feel a lot better for it. Try every now and then, just go a day without meat, a day or two without meat, just lots of vegetables, more water. so many ways to increase your recovery between sessions. yeah, guys, I hope this helps. It's such a deep topic. We literally only scratched the surface of one idea of one type of training for one type of specific goal. You still got to look at tempo. You got to look at rep range. You got to look at periodization. You got to look at what time of year it is in terms to where you want to be for your goal, whether it be a meso, macro, micro cycle, any injury recovery, and then you look at the person's typing. So how their nervous system recovers, how if they're more prone, if they've got excess choline in the system, they're more prone to tendon problems. Then if they're not able to handle heavy loads, but you need to make that transition through 1 RM sort of range for them, how do you deal with that? And there's so much to go into with it. You really got to start looking deeper with it, but that's kind of like a good starting point for you guys there. So send us some more questions if you want to know some more stuff, and we'll do our best. Peace.